What you see on the screen is a summary of a recent paper that I was reading. And this paper proposes analysis to filtration prompting method. And the whole idea of this prompting method, according to what Claude summarized from this paper, it is an advanced prompting technique designed to enhance the robustness of large language models when dealing with irrelevant information in reasoning tasks. ATF addresses the challenge of LLMs being influenced by irrelevant details in problem descriptions, which can significantly reduce their reasoning accuracy. So, what this approach, from my understanding, does is that it basically tries to identify or filter out irrelevant information that could be part of a context. So, if you're building some type of RAG system on a RAG prompt, you could potentially use such prompting method to remove any irrelevant information. So besides all the re-ranking and all the retrieval stuff that you have done and all that optimization, in addition to that, you can use something like this. So you can pair it with whatever you already have. A couple of key components here. There is an analysis stage and then there is a filtration stage. And you can see that Claude summarizes the paper for me. It does an introduction, it does key components. It also shows me a prompt example, which I found interesting. So this shows you the different stages of the prompting method that's proposed. There are two stages. There is analysis stage, and then there is also a filtration stage. Doesn't show any figures or any diagrams because it cannot do that yet. And so that would have been interesting to have a visual view of what's happening in these two stages. These are some use cases and application, and here you have some practical insights about this particular method. Now, I learned really quickly what this method was, and I got really interested in it. But why did I do all of this? Why did I actually use Claude to summarize a paper? Now that I have a summary, and I think this is an interesting technique that I may want to apply, one thing I can do is I can go and verify in the paper itself if this description is good enough. So here is the paper, and I just fed Claude this paper, and it summarized for me what this particular method was doing. I already read the paper, so I'm going to jump directly into the figure. So this figure here explains this whole process. So we have this analysis phase, and then we have also this filtration phase. And what's interesting about what Claude did is that it gave me this prompt example. And it gave me this prompt example because I asked it to give me a prompt example if it could do that based on the information that it saw in the PDF. And this is really helpful for me because I do apply these prompting methods. I want to learn about all these new methods to see what works for my use cases. So in order to confirm this, you can see that there is the analysis phase. In this analysis phase, it goes through several prompts. So it does some reasoning extraction, and it asks questions like, what is the key information in the question? Please list all the information in the text. And that is really helpful because it's going to construct this demonstration based on the original question. And these ones at the bottom here are important because these ones are essentially classifying, and it's also going to do that for those that don't have. It's just going to say there's no irrelevant information. So once we have those two pieces of information, now we can add it here. You can see the different color coding here. So we have the orange, and then we have this. So this itself is a prompt template that was used. And so we have for each question the explanation or the analysis, and then we also have the answer as part of it that came from here. And then we can provide a test problem. So we give it a test problem, we give it the question. This is the entire question, and you can see that something was highlighted in red. That part that was highlighted in red basically will be filtered out. All this information is then fed here. This is the LLM output, and then you can see here is the test problem. So we give it the test problem, we give it the LLM output, and then we can ask this question. If there is irrelevant information, please exclude it and output the context after excluding the irrelevant information. If there is no irrelevant information, please directly output the context. So here is the response to this particular prompt. So that combined gives you a good method to identify whether there is irrelevant information that's provided as part of the context in the question that was asked. So the question is, how did Claude actually achieve this? How did Claude come up with the summary, which was super helpful for me? So what I'm going to show you here is a really neat feature of Claude, and I'm not seeing a lot of people talking about this, and I'm starting to use this a lot actually. So something that you may want to do in Claude is create a template, something that you can share with a group. You can upload important information that may help with getting the right type of answers. For this particular project, the knowledge that I'm passing as part of the project are some examples of prompting techniques. And these prompting techniques, I actually got them from our prompting guide. So you can see here the text. It's just a structure giving it an example of how we might want the explainer that we were requesting based on that paper, what is the formatting that we may want, right? So these are just a lot of examples that I pulled from what we have already built. Gave it 4 examples, and apparently that was enough to actually follow the particular format. And then what's more important here is I actually gave it this custom instruction. So I told it your task is to generate an explainer of the prompting method used in the attached paper using a similar style as the examples provided in the text file. So the text files are these ones. So please use the following guidelines to generate the explanation. And then here are some more details about technical tone, how important that is. Please include the concept itself, explain that, the prompt example, which we saw it as well, use cases, applications, and practical insights. Use the examples provided in the text files to get an idea of what structure could be used for the generated explanation. So that is the custom instruction. You can define it. This is very similar to custom GPT, but I find this to be more intuitive and very easy to understand. And the cool part about this, and here is where it gets really powerful. So I have actually created this project, and you can create projects. You can go to projects here, and you can create a project. You see the button here at the top, and I've created a few of them that I'm starting to use. So I have one for generating slides from information or blogs. I have one, the one that I just explained, to create a prompt explainer. And then I have one that converts newsletters into different format that I actually found useful. So going back to Claude, so I go back to the main screen here. So how do I actually use in the homepage? And actually, this is how I found it. So you can see here, there is this option called Use at Project. How I found this is that I asked myself, well, I'm prompting for the same things. I am achieving the same task, but every time I have to be uploading documents and I have to be giving it these detailed instructions. And I thought custom GPTs are really good for that. But then I also wondered, does Cloud has something like this? Does it has a template that I can use? And in fact, I think the template feature is this project feature. So if you go to project, there are a couple of projects. The project that I just demoed was Generate Prompting Explainer, and I can select that. So once I select that, you can see that it's in blue here and it's already selected. So now I can just feed it the paper and I can just tell it, give me a prompt explanation. So I'm going to show you here in real time how it works. So let's see, I'm going to add the content and then I'm going to give it that same paper. So it has the paper, right? And then I can just tell it, please generate an explainer. As simple as that. The thing is, because it already has some custom instructions that I already set, those system instructions, and I already gave it some additional documents, it's going to use that as part of the context, and it's going to try to summarize this particular paper based on those instructions that I gave it. I can just hit run here. I will not get the same answer, obviously, but I'm expecting something very close to those instructions that I gave it. So you can see here the format. So it says introduction. I think the introduction is pretty much the same. Then key components. This one, it explains in more details what those components were, the analysis stage and the filtration stage. Then it also gave me the prompt example. Interesting enough, with the prompt example, it gives me using different formats. I like the previous format because the previous format is actually more aligned with what was explained in the paper. Tries to use some notations and so on. And then the use case applications, then the practical insights. So you see, it's very consistent with at least the practical insights, the use cases and applications. Maybe the prompt example can be left to be more loose. So the system should figure out itself what that prompt example is. But I like that it gave me a prompt example because I actually requested that. Key components, introduction, and so on. So this is how I'm consistently generating explainers for papers. And I'm excited about this. I'm going to use this a lot because there's a lot of papers, a lot of interesting methods. I can imagine also generalizing this not only to prompting methods, but like different variants of RAG, different variants of agents, and so on. So these quick explainers really help me filter out the type of papers that I'm looking for specific topics and so on. So I cannot wait to just keep experimenting with this, and I'll report if I find any interesting findings. I find that this already helps me a lot, and it boosts my productivity in reading papers and finding papers that are interesting for my own use cases. And the cool part is that I don't have to repeat those custom instructions over and over and over again. I can just reuse this project as a template and I just need to prompt it. So I have a bunch of them that I use. So I'm mostly using these project or templates for repetitive tasks. And you may have a bunch of these, right, for code generation and all these different things. So it's a really powerful feature. Not too many people are talking about it or know about it. And I just wanted to do a video about that. Hopefully this was interesting and useful. Leave some comments below if you think this is interesting and useful and how you would like to use it. Maybe I can give you some tips or I can offer you some suggestions whether it makes sense to use for your own use cases. That will be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider leaving a like and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you all on the next one.